today. English is a global language, yet its history is a messy puzzle of invasions, borrowings, and happy accidents that unfolded over thousands of years. Unlike languages that grew in relative isolation, English was shaped by constant contact, trade, conflict, and migration. That is why English can feel simple on the surface, but surprisingly irregular underneath. To understand why we speak the way we do today, we have to travel far back in time, long before England even existed as a nation. We begin not with kings or castles, but with ancient peoples and spoken sounds that were never written down. Long before recorded history, groups of nomads lived on the wide grasslands north of the Black Sea. They spoke a language that would eventually give birth to many of the world's major language families. Linguists call this ancestral tongue Proto-Indo-European, the great-grandmother of English, Hindi, Spanish, Russian, Greek, and Persian. Although these languages sound wildly different today, they are distant relatives. These people left no textbooks, no dictionaries, and no written records. Yet linguists have reconstructed parts of their speech by comparing patterns across modern languages and working backwards. Take the word mother. In Latin, it appears as mater, in Sanskrit as mater, and in German as Mutter. These similarities are not coincidence, they are linguistic fossils, proof of a shared origin. As Proto-Indo-European speakers migrated across Europe and Asia, their language fractured into branches. One of these branches became the Germanic languages, which would later include German, Dutch, Swedish, and English. In Northern Europe, early Germanic tribes developed a distinct way of speaking, full of strong consonants and flexible word building. Their vocabulary reflected their world: weather, hunting, farming, family, and survival. This early Germanic speech formed the core of English. Even now, the most common words in English are usually Germanic, like eat, sleep, drink, house, child, and work. But how did this Germanic language cross the sea to the British Isles? The answer lies in the rise and fall of Rome. For centuries, Britain was part of the Roman Empire. Latin was the language of government, military command, and urban life. Roman influence left traces in place names and a small layer of vocabulary, but it did not replace local speech completely. When Roman power collapsed in the 5th century, legions withdrew and Roman administration disappeared. Britain was left exposed, and different groups fought for control. Across the North Sea, Germanic peoples saw opportunity. The Angles, Saxons, and Jutes arrived in waves, bringing their dialects, customs, and warrior culture. Over time, their speech blended into what we now call Old English. The old Celtic languages survived mostly on the fringes, yet they still left marks on English, especially in place names like London, Avon, and Thames. Old English would sound almost foreign to modern ears. It had grammatical gender, complex endings, and many forms for the same word depending on role in a sentence. Yet it gave us essential, earthy words we still use every day, like man, woman, house, bread, field, water, and night. Old English was also a language of poetry and oral tradition. Writers relied on rhythm and alliteration more than rhyme. The most famous work from this era is Beowulf, an epic poem of heroes and monsters that captures the strength of early English sound and style. Then English faced another powerful force from the north. In the late 8th century, longships appeared on the horizon. Viking raiders from Scandinavia brought fear, fire, and a new language called Old Norse. The Vikings were not only raiders, many settled and lived side by side with Anglo-Saxons, especially in the Danelaw. Because Old English and Old Norse were cousins, the two groups could communicate, but they often had to simplify grammar to avoid confusion. This contact helped English lose many complicated endings, making the language more flexible. The Vikings also gave English important words and structures. They contributed pronouns like they, them, and their, which replaced older native forms. They added everyday words like sky, egg, window, knife, and husband. They also left stronger words tied to conflict like ransack, berserk, and slaughter. By the time Viking influence faded, English had already changed. It was tougher, simpler, and ready for the next shock. That shock arrived in the most famous year in English language history, 1066. William of Normandy invaded England and replaced the ruling class. The new aristocracy spoke Norman French. Suddenly, French became the language of power, law, and high culture, while English became the language of ordinary life. For centuries, England was effectively trilingual. French was used in court and among nobles. Latin dominated the church, scholarship, and official records. English survived among the majority of the population. This social divide created a dual vocabulary that still shapes English today. The English peasant raised a cow, but the French noble ate beef. The animal was a sheep in the field, but mutton on the plate. A pig became pork. Even now, Germanic words often feel direct and physical, while French and Latin words can feel more formal or abstract. French also flooded English with terms for government, law, and society. Words like justice, jury, evidence, prison, parliament, and authority entered common use. Military vocabulary changed too, with words like army, navy, soldier, and battle. Over time, English absorbed so much French that the vocabulary expanded dramatically. Slowly, English returned to public life. In the 13th century, a new mixed form had emerged, Middle English. Geoffrey Chaucer showed that English could be artistic and sophisticated. His Canterbury Tales captured everyday voices while blending French vocabulary with older English rhythm. Then, technology reshaped English again. In 1476, William Caxton brought the printing press to England. Printing created a demand for consistency because books needed stable spelling to reach many readers. Caxton favored the London dialect, helping it become the standard for written English. But spelling was standardized just as pronunciation kept changing. That is why English preserves many silent letters. In earlier centuries, night began with a pronounced K and contained a rough throat sound. Printing froze older spellings even after sounds shifted. Around the same time, English pronunciation went through the Great Vowel Shift. Over several centuries, long vowel sounds moved, so words that once sounded closer to their spelling changed dramatically. This is one major reason English spelling and pronunciation often do not match, creating frustration for learners today. English also experienced a wave of creative expansion during the Renaissance. Scholars and writers borrowed heavily from Latin and Greek to express new scientific and philosophical ideas. Some people mocked these inkhorn words, but many survived. That is how English gained layers of technical and intellectual vocabulary alongside its older everyday core. In this era, the greatest name is William Shakespeare. He played with grammar, invented new words, and popularized memorable phrases. He introduced or spread words like lonely, generous, gloomy, and fashionable, and expressions like break the ice and vanish into thin air. Because his plays were widely performed, his language reached audiences across social classes. The King James Bible also shaped English style. Its rhythm, phrasing, and imagery influenced speech and writing for generations. Even people who never read it directly absorbed its expressions through culture, education, and later literature. As England's trade and influence grew, English traveled farther than ever before. The British Empire carried English around the world. But English did not simply overwrite other languages, it borrowed from them. From India, English adopted words like shampoo, pajamas, bungalow, and jungle. From Arabic, through trade and scholarship, it absorbed words like algebra, sugar, and coffee. From the Caribbean and West Africa came words like zombie and voodoo. From Australia came words like kangaroo and boomerang. English became a collector of global vocabulary. Across the Atlantic, American English developed its own identity. It preserved some older British features that later faded in Britain, while also creating new words, new pronunciations, and new spellings. Noah Webster promoted spelling reforms like color instead of color and center instead of centra, aiming for a distinct American standard. At this point, many people imagine British English and American English as two separate languages. In reality, they are the same language, like two branches of the same river. They share the same core grammar, the same sentence structure, and the vast majority of everyday vocabulary. In normal conversation, speakers on both sides of the Atlantic understand each other extremely well, often around 95 to 99%. Most differences are limited to a relatively small set of common words, spelling preferences, and accent patterns, not deep structural separation. As the modern era arrived, new institutions helped standardize and spread English even more. Dictionaries became influential, especially Samuel Johnson's dictionary in the 18th century. Later, mass education increased literacy. In the 20th and 21st centuries, radio, film, and the BBC helped popularize certain accents and vocabulary choices, even though regional accents never disappeared. Then came the Industrial Revolution. New machines, new jobs, and new urban lifestyles demanded new language. Words connected to factories, transport, engineering, and science multiplied. English also developed a habit of forming compounds and turning nouns into verbs, a flexibility that still drives modern slang and tech language. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the digital revolution transformed English into a global default. New words like email, selfie, blog, and live stream spread at incredible speed. Brand names turned into verbs, and internet slang moved across borders in days instead of decades. Dictionaries now chase English rather than control it. Today, around 1.5 billion people speak English, but for most, it is a second or third language. That reality has created new varieties, from Singapore English to Indian English to Nigerian English, each with its own rhythm and identity. English is no longer owned by one country. It is a shared tool used for science, business, entertainment, and everyday connection. From the steppes of ancient Eurasia to the screens of our smartphones, English has traveled a long and strange road. It is a survivor, a borrower, and a sponge, absorbing influences and reshaping itself again and again. And that is exactly why it remains alive. One reason English feels so mixed is that it carries multiple layers from different periods. A simple sentence can contain Germanic structure, French vocabulary, and Latin-based academic words at the same time. For example, you can ask for help, request assistance, or seek assistance. All three meaning overlap, but the tone changes because the historical roots are different. English grammar also changed in quieter ways that learners rarely notice. Old English used many endings to show meaning, but later English relied more on word order. English also developed features like do support, which lets us form questions and negatives with do and does. That is why we say, "Do you know?" and "I do not know," instead of older patterns that sounded closer to Germanic word order. The progressive form, like "I am working," also became more flexible over time, helping English express ongoing actions clearly. Middle English did not have one single correct form because people spoke in strong regional dialects. Over time, government offices in London helped shape a written standard. This is often linked to the chancery clerks, whose official documents influenced spelling and grammar choices. Later, as more people moved to cities, dialects mixed and a shared standard became practical for trade, education, and law. Yet even with a written standard, spoken English never became one uniform sound. Accents remained diverse in England, Scotland, Ireland, and later across the wider English-speaking world. That diversity is not a problem. It's a sign that English belongs to communities, not just to textbooks. When English spread globally, it also created new local expressions and new styles of storytelling. In some places, English blended with local languages and produced new mixed forms, including pidgins and creoles. These are not broken English, they are full systems with their own grammar patterns, shaped by history and identity. In the modern world, English continues to grow through culture. Music, films, gaming, and online communities introduce slang and new meanings constantly. Words like viral, stream, and cloud existed before the internet, but technology gave them new life. Even punctuation and emojis now influence tone, showing how communication keeps evolving. So when learners worry about perfect English, it helps to remember one simple truth. English has never been perfect, consistent, or tidy. It has always been a living language that adapts to the needs of its speakers. That is why it can feel difficult at first, but also why it can be powerful once you practice it regularly. Think of English as a river that keeps widening as it flows. Each generation adds new words, new accents, and new ways to express ideas. When you learn English today, you are joining that moving river every single day. Thank you for watching Study English Daily with us. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more educational videos from around the world. Your support is our motivation to create more videos for you.